Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Podsauce. I'm Alicia Renee.
And I'm Dax Holt.
We are your podcast discovery show. Over 3 million different podcasts. We keep saying that every episode because we feel that it's important that you guys know that we're out here doing the Lord's work, sifting through things just for you to make sure that you guys get the creme de la creme.
It's true, and I don't know about you, but like every day since we've been doing this, people are coming up to me and they're like, I love this concept, give me a recommendation.
I'm really excited because we have multiple categories. We have Dax's Done in the Day, Murder, Most Foul, True Crime Podcast. We have Health and Wealth, Odd Pods, and so you actually have a Done in a Day pick for us, right?
I do have a Done in a Day. For someone that is just now tuning in, Done in a Day is a podcast.
Done in a Day. Sorry. I hear you say it and it calls me, but then I'm just like, he's not going to do it. Go ahead.
So Done in a Day is a podcast basically that you can finish in a day.
Yeah.
Pretty simple, short, easy, digestible episodes. And so my podcast pick for Done in a Day this week is called Wild Things.
Okay.
It's 8 episodes, all within like the 45-minute range.
Right up your alley.
And it's all about Siegfried and Roy, the magicians.
Oh, dope.
It is done by Apple TV. It is an original podcast that they have put together. It is so fascinating, Leash. So Angie told me about it. She's like, oh, you gotta check this out. I have binged it. I am almost done in a day listening to this whole podcast. It dives into the investigation after Roy was mauled by the tiger, the cover-up, the all about their sexuality, all about people working behind the scenes at the show, how their show got to be where it was, them starting off, having abusive fathers when they were younger, and how that kind of brought them together. They met on a boat coming over, like a tour boat in Germany, and they were putting on magic shows on the boat, and then one of them had the idea, Roy, to bring on a cheetah, and how that kind of spawned to the let's get bigger and more cats and more wildlife. I mean, such a fascinating podcast because these two men were so private that getting to hear, so there was a woman who was coming to their house on a pretty monthly basis to write their autobiography. And she's in this podcast describing what they were really like in real life, what their house was like, what their relationship was like with these animals. I mean, I've just never heard them described in this way.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, every episode, I'm like, okay, next one. It's so good.
I'm going to check it out because I really love what you said. Mainly, depending on when you were born, you may or may not know or be familiar with Siegfried and Roy. But during their time, they were the biggest act in Vegas. I mean, people
100%.
traveled in from far and wide
and they
to
get
see
into
the performance. Yeah.
They get into it because Sin City at that time was all sex and like gambling.
They were an actual show.
They brought in this huge over-the-top show that families could go to.
And an immersive show that that the audience could participate in. They actually were the first show that I saw. My dad was stationed. Yeah, my dad was stationed at Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas, so they were one of the first shows. So yeah, that's a very near and dear to my heart. So I'm definitely going to check that out. Wild Things, you say?
Wild Things. That is my Done in the Day pick for this week.
We're going to put that up on our webpage, podsauce.com, so you guys can check it out. Hopefully along with me. That is Dax's Done in the Day.
We got so much more coming up. Don't go anywhere. This is Podsauce. Welcome back to Podsauce. All right, Leash.
It's your favorite time.
It's my favorite time because normally this is when I tell my pick, but today is your turn to say your pick. This is your recommendation, a podcast that you listen to, you enjoy, and you would like to present to the audience.
So do you remember when we talked about Code Switch? I think it was like, was it my pick?
It was.
Yeah, it was a pick. I think it
was
was a pick that Ange actually alley-ooped my way, and I enjoyed it. But you and I ended up listening to the same episode, Albinism.
Usual. Yep.
For sure. So one of the episodes that I also listened to was Jay Williams, former NBA player, now sports analyst. He interviewed Gabrielle Union, which is a very well-known actor.
Wait, so was Code Switch your choice?
I'm giving you context.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So you know how I said I stumbled upon it. You know I don't know how to tell a short story, okay? Sorry, guys. I had to read him real quick.
Sorry, I had to reel her in real fast.
That's what we call a read. Now, like I was saying, I stumbled upon Jay. Jay has a podcast called The Limits, hosted by Jay Williams. And so I just stumbled upon this interview that he did with Niecy Nash. I love Niecy Nash. She's a multi-award-winning actor. She's the star of Claws. Just to, as an actor, hear from another woman who's done comedic acting, drama acting, and she's won awards for it. And she was, at one point in her career, always the supporting actor. Mm-hmm. And Niecy is so well-rounded. Just to hear her journey to become a leading lady.
Well, you know me, I'm a sucker for anything when it's like the celebrity interview and finding out how they got to where they are now and those humble beginning moments, like that I could see myself. And I love Niecy, so I think I would check out that episode myself.
We're going to put up on our webpage, we're going to put it up on our YouTube page. And on our webpage, I think we should put the direct link to that particular episode, the Niecy Nash interview with Jay Williams. So The Limits with Jay Williams is my podcast pick of the week.
Solid pick. I'm going to give it to you this week. It's a first, but I'm going to give it to you. So make sure you guys check out our YouTube page at The Podsauce. And we got so much more coming up. Don't go anywhere. This is Podsauce.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Podsauce. I'm Alicia Renee.
And I'm Dax Holt.
We have a guest on today. We got Daht, the host of IDKMYDE. I didn't know, maybe you didn't either. What's up, B?
What's happening? How y'all doing today? Thanks for having me so much on Podsauce.
I mean, we're just out here with this Black excellence, and I'm here for it. You're just out here teaching these kids and undoing, the school systems. How do I phrase this and not lose my job?
I got you. The perfect phrase for it.
Come on.
We're reprogramming the average miseducated American.
Look at that.
Talk to me. Talk to me, B-Dot.
That is the
That's
way to put it.
Because
I was like, oh, where are we going with this leash? You're going to get us both canceled here.
Like, how do I say this and not sound 2 shades from militant and lose my job?
So B, give us a quick, rundown of what exactly your podcast is about and what you're trying to get out to people.
All right, man, it's very, it's just a transparent journey of my ignorance, to be completely honest with you. Back when George Floyd was murdered by Derek Chauvin, for some reason I had this burning for learning. Like, I just started deep diving on just historical content. And it started with a book I read called The History of the United States. And at the History of the United States, I was introduced to Christopher Columbus. But the Christopher Columbus I was introduced to was totally different from the Christopher Columbus that was taught in school. In school, they taught little songs. In 1492, he sailed the ocean blue, and they gave you this beautiful Christmassy picture of him finding this land. And these people said, hey, you can have this land, and here's a peace pipe for you. Happy Thanksgiving. And that's not how it went at all. Christopher Columbus was a pretty heinous individual by the way he killed people and the amounts of people that he killed to take over the lands that he took over. And for America to have a holiday for Christopher Columbus, but no holiday for Juneteenth that was recognized federally at the time, it just started making me ask certain questions. And I just started reading more stories, stories about hush puppies and stories about buck breaking. And a lot of those stories were dark. And honestly, it was just the transparency of I didn't know. And when I would talk to some of my folks about it and some of my friends, they didn't know either. So on Instagram, I started I Didn't Know, Maybe You Didn't Either. And it caught the wind of Charlemagne and the Black Effect Podcast Network. And for February this month, we've dropped a new episode every single day this month. And it's just been a great platform, and I'm excited about it, man.
I can honestly say that your podcast is necessary, mainly because you are doing a lot of unlearning and re-educating. I am ashamed to say that there are a lot of things that were mentioned in your podcast that I didn't know, and I'm from the Southern. I'm Southern. I'm from Louisiana. I'm from Louisiana. The Southern Bible Belt, and a lot of these things, these stories that were passed on just within my family. I'm like case in point, hush puppies. Hush puppies is a really huge thing for us. Obviously, it's a Creole dish. Well, we have claimed it as a Creole dish. I'm sure the origin is probably different if we break it down, but just to know that, enslaved people used it to hush the puppies so they could get away. Just little context like that. Or eeny, meeny, miny, mo, a nursery rhyme that we all grew up playing, that is derived from enslaved peoples, catching enslaved men and murdering them. So just like those contexts. But just to make it more palatable, because I want to ask you, and maybe, and this is why I say your show is so necessary. You have an episode where you cover the Tuskegee experiment, and I'm ashamed to admit I didn't know. Well, let me not say ashamed, but yeah, I guess ashamed because education.
Nah, don't be ashamed.
Okay.
Don't be ashamed. See, that's not fair. That's the problem too, Alicia. Like so many people put parameters on what you should know.
Okay.
And it's not fair. Like what you were taught in Louisiana, I might not have been taught in North Carolina.
Fair.
So we really don't have the same level playing field. And I'm not talking about the systemic divide. I'm not even getting into that. I'm just talking about on the most basic level of what certain teachers are safe and feel comfortable teaching to their class. Like
That's
they feel comfortable teaching us about George Washington Carver and Harriet Tubman, but they don't want to talk about Huey Newton. They don't want to talk about, and those players were very necessary in the advancement of Black people too.
Right.
So I just wanted to I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to say that's the strength in this podcast. All of us are ignorant to this.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know, maybe you didn't know either. And it's okay to know that you didn't know, but to want to learn.
Yes.
That's the important part.
Yes. No, thank you for that, Grace. And you're right. You're right. I think that we do have to take that stigma of shame out of it, because then people won't ask the questions because they feel like they should know. To be a good Black, you should know these things.
Well, even as a white man, I feel like there's a lot of things that I need to be educated in, and sometimes you feel silly asking questions that you should know the answer to. And so a podcast like this, I went in, I was listening, I was like, I learned a lot from it on questions that I would have never even thought about.
How do you keep your joy? Because I imagine doing your Googles and doing your research to put your podcast together in its various episodes, it can be very laborious on your spirit just to, I don't know about you, but certain things, certain episodes that I listen to, because these are things that I partook in, doing the dozens, Hush Puppies, it kind of put me in a space of just knowing what my people had to endure. How do you keep your joy doing this podcast?
I keep my joy because yesterday I was talking on a Zoom to an elementary school, and they were so excited to talk to me. And I've been blessed and fortunate enough to be on Wild 'N Out. I'm a 17-year radio personality morning show in my hometown. And they didn't want to talk to me about any of that. Mm-hmm. They wanted to talk to me about, I didn't know, maybe you didn't either. They had my YouTubes pulled up in their classrooms. And the teachers were telling me that there were students who are normally students that they have discipline issues with, that were just super engaged with the content and writing stuff down, and said they wanted to ask their mom and dad, did they know this, et cetera, et cetera. To be able to reach a demographic from 8 to 80 with this content and deliver it, again, like Dak said, in a digestible manner, but also with a bit of entertainment that keeps you sort of engaged. Knowing that I'm reaching an audience that the message is getting out, I think that brings me the most joy. Like since I was a child, entertaining has been my strong suit. I've always known that I wanted to be an entertainer. Growing up in the church, they prophesied that I was going to be a preacher, and my wife always gives me a hard time talking about, I ain't going to be no first lady. But I don't really feel like you got to be in a pulpit to preach, right?
Fair.
Like I think that preaching is just spreading the good word. And if I can spread this information as much as possible, I'm not a historian. I'm not an activist. America kills activists. I'm not an activist. Please don't label me as such.
No, that's right.
I'm an entertainer. I'm an ignorant American, just like many of us. And I'm learning as I go. And if there's anybody that would like to join me on this very vulnerable journey of reprogramming, I implore you to jump on board, man. Check out my YouTube channel. It's b.tv. Make sure you've subscribed to the Black Effect Podcast Network. I appreciate Charlemagne and iHeartRadio. And let's get this thing going.
B, I have one question. You have a lot of these facts and stories that really blow your mind, but what was the one episode that you feel like really resonates, really sticks in your mind more than the rest, that really shocked you?
I think it was the Uncle Tom episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Uncle Tom one struck me so hard. One, because I didn't know there was a book, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Had no clue. And then I didn't realize who Uncle Tom was. In the Black community, you call somebody Uncle Tom when they get into buddy-buddy with white people. You call somebody Uncle Tom when they're doing too much shucking and jiving. That's Uncle Tom. But it's used incorrectly. That is not who Uncle Tom was. Uncle Tom was not a Sambo. Uncle Tom was not somebody who was too buddy-buddy with the white people at the expense of black people.
Yeah.
To the contrary, Uncle Tom, in the book Uncle Tom's Cabin, gave his life because he wouldn't tell where two black women had escaped to.
Yes.
But that had been whitewashed in history because so many things that black people have done have been whitewashed in history, from cowboys to everything else, that they flipped it to a derogatory term. And that's why Uncle Tom is viewed as a negative. No, Uncle Tom was powerful.
Yes.
And I think learning that myself, and like, if there was one episode that I could make sure it got 1 million views, it will be that one, because I think that one is the one that educates both sides the most.
So, B, with us being a podcast discovery show, I'm assuming you are also enjoying podcasts out there. Is there any podcast that you can recommend not only to us, but to our audience to listen to?
Well, I'm a huge Carolina Tar Heels fan. Huge Carolina Tar Heels fan, to the point where I am the 6th man of Carolina basketball. This is my first season being the arena host for them, and I love it. But with that in mind, the Carolina Insider podcast is something that I listen to often. The Player and the Fan is another one. I'm a huge advocate for black women in sports, and Sheena Quick and Vashti Hurt, they have a great podcast called Quick Blitz. I'll support that. On the Black Effect Podcast Network, I keep it home team with a lot of that. I love Drink Champs with Nori.
Yeah.
I love Big Facts with Big Bank and Baby Jade and Scream. Of course, Charlemagne and the Breakfast Club podcast, I'm on that. 85 South Show, I love those. Those are my homies. Bean and Fly and Lowe's, like, of course, More Than Culture. That's another funny one that I listen to. I listen to a lot of audiobooks too. So, you know, I try to give my time, and then I try to have my quiet time. But I think those are the podcasts I listen to the most.
Awesome.
Be the host of I Didn't Know, Maybe You Didn't Either. That is a Black Effect podcast, iHeart, in partnership with iHeart. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on the Podsauce. Again, we're going to put up the link to the episode for the Lone Ranger as well as Uncle Tom, because those were two very impactful. What would you like to put up there, T?
I thought the nursery rhyme one was very interesting. Yeah. What else did I listened to? Cheaper by the Dozen, and the term MFer.
Yeah, that one blew me. That one hurt me.
Really, we just need to put up a link to every single episode because they're all good. You will learn something if you listen to this podcast.
It's a catch-all. Thank
you, B, so much. Guys, don't go anywhere. We got so much more coming up. This is Podsauce. Welcome back to Podsauce. Man, this show flies every time.
It flies when you're having fun.
We have fun. We've got good guests.
Yeah.
By the way, big shout out to Daht and his podcast. I didn't know, and maybe you didn't either.
Yeah, out here
great
educating
podcast.
The people.
Yeah, really fun.
Give you guys information.
And I know you've got one more recommendation for us before we go. Health is Wealth.
I do. Yes, we have a Health is Wealth category for those of you who do not know, and that is just anything that falls under that umbrella. Health, wealth, trying to get your money together, get your mind together, because mind being right equals pockets being right. You see what we did there? Health is, no? Okay, moving right along. This podcast that I have to recommend to you guys is called Food Psyche. Now, funny thing is, it's by a renowned dietitian. At first, when I listened to it, I am trying to make better decisions. I was like teetering on being insulin resistant.
Okay.
Diabetes, high blood pressure runs in my family. Diets do not work for me, and I know that. I know myself enough to know that. It's like with anybody, right? You tell somebody something that they can't have, they're gonna want more of it. And so I was scrolling through trying to find an episode that spoke to me, and this was about intuitive eating, rephrasing, repackaging how we look at food and our relationship to it. And it was so beautiful to find out that this is something I was already doing. And so she just basically speaks to different clinicians and dietitians and just really tries to get people to rework their mentality as it pertains to food, right?
Okay.
So don't do diets. We all know diets don't work. And try not to posture yourself in a place of depriving, taking something away, saying you can't have something. Just rephrasing of, well, I know this, if I eat this, consequence and actions, right? This A, B, C, D, and E may happen, but I also enjoy this. So maybe just have a little bit of it, and then a lot of bit of these other things that feel good.
Yep.
You know, intuitive eating, listening to my body, right? And just because something is really good doesn't mean I have to consume it all in this one sitting, right? You know, so okay, I'm gonna just moderation. Moderation is key.
No, I think people actually need to hear that, because sometimes it's like you're stuck in a cycle that you can't get out of, and you just need someone to say, hey, your cycle's fine, but let's rework it so that you're working it in a different way. And especially with food, especially with dieting, I feel like that is such a tough thing to get stuck in a rut with. And so to help people with that, I think it could be a really positive podcast.
Yeah, Food Psyche is my health is wealth pick that you guys should check out.
Awesome. Great recommendation. And hey, if you guys aren't already following us on social media, make sure you check out the Podsauce on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
Hit
we
like and subscribe.
We are everywhere.
Yeah.
And obviously make sure you sign up for our newsletter. Head on over to podsauce.com. And if you'd like to follow me, I'm at Dax Holt.
And if you would like to follow me, I am Alicia Renee. Thank you all so much for joining us, for listening, for watching, for sharing your picks and your suggestions. We hear them, we love them, we receive them. And until next time, be good to yourselves, everybody.